honestly, I think I'd said this on the podcast. I know I told you. I think Burden is more talented than Tet. I think Tet has more physical tools and certainly
Don't call
fits
him
better.
Tet. He doesn't like that.
Oh, does he not? I had no idea.
No,
okay, we'll
I didn't
stick with
either.
T-Mac, which Dan Morgan was calling him in every video I saw.
He likes that.
Yeah, I think he is more talented than T-Mac. I think T-Mac has more physical tools that complement what the Panthers already have better. But imagine if they had that pick and Burden was sitting there, what they could have done in the first round.
Right. I mean, I could see that. But at the same time, look, the Panthers have – I'm not saying that Burden is going to be bad or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I'm just saying that I would rather them draft based on what they know someone can do than – you know what I mean? And T-Mac, I'm trying to make it feel good.
I know, especially because of our generation, we know
right
Tracy McGrady is T-Mac.
Yeah, well, that too. But I'm trying – like, I really do like him a lot. And I just – maybe it's just I do tend to somewhat be biased towards dudes that I think that I really enjoyed watching.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just my lizard brain.
No, he was undeniably fun, and he is undeniably like I love the idea because you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago as we were talking about the progression of Bryce and XL together. That when Bryce comes back from being benched, you start to realize that he actually, when it looks like he might be overthrowing a guy, is putting it where XL can get the ball, the defender covering him cannot. Like, boy, add Tet McMillan and T-Mac into that mix, and it's going to be really advantageous.
Yeah, I agree, and a lot of praise has been given to his route running and stuff, and so I think that he'll be able to adjust and do that, and they should be able to get a chemistry. And look, the fact that Bryce wanted him and they picked him is that's I feel like that's telling. It's telling in a lot of ways. I think it puts Xavier on notice a little bit, which is why I was thinking it wasn't going to happen, by the way, because it's not like he didn't show some promise, but those dropsies, usually it takes the Panthers several years to kind of wise up to the dropsies a little bit and to go, okay, we need to address, like, this guy isn't going to get over it. So it's weird to me to see them be like, okay, this might be an issue. Let's get one other one just so we're sure.
Look at the way the wide receiver depth chart began last year with Jonathan Mingo still pretty high on the depth chart. But so I'm glad you brought up Bryce, because I do think it is worth asking what this means now. I mean, look, he is the quarterback of an NFL franchise. Usually the quarterback gets some deference that other positions, do not. But given the rocky road to let's say the level of confidence this team has in him now, I frankly am surprised and wonder if this is a turning of the page for, let's say, Bryce's power in Carolina.
Yeah, maybe. And I think it can only help, I would hope, it can only help his confidence going forward that this is what happened and that he even felt good enough in the first place to comfortable enough to, call them up and be like, hey, look, we never know, you've even mentioned it in the lead up to the draft. We don't know how much of it was a misdirect too. Whenever they were talking about defensive players, and we didn't know which was the misdirect and whatever else. And so we weren't sure.
Did you see, oh shoot, who's the guy that just married Alyssa Lang from the SEC network? Sycamore, is it Trevor Sycamore? On his podcast, he was like laughingly bemoaning the fact that, like, how does someone lie to Kay Adams? Kay Adams is so nice. What business does Dave Canales have lied to Kay Adams about the draft? I mean, that is something that I've tried to get across, whether it is when we started this show a couple of years ago or just writing about sports media stuff. Every draft insider has a long list of sources in their phone, and during the draft season, every single one of those sources has incentive to lie to the draft insider. So I definitely think Bryce swayed this. I would not be surprised if Bryce swayed it at the quote-unquote last minute, like not like right before they were making the pick, but in the last few days. Maybe it was the idea that, okay, we can get good value in the second round for a pass rusher. Let's give our quarterback that vote of confidence. Let's give the quarterback the weapon he thinks he needs. And by the way, Bryce and T-Mac, I guess, played together in some camp settings in Southern California. So they did have a little bit of a relationship that sort of plays into this. But I do wonder if, like, maybe Dave Canales was not lying to Kay Adams. Maybe at that moment, the plan was defense all the way.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe he didn't know because technically it's supposed to be Dan Morgan taking, making that call. And, hey, maybe Dan can just blame Bryce later if it goes poorly. No, I'm just kidding. But, I mean, it's a tough one for me because, look, it's not like I dislike Jalen Walker. I didn't. Mm-hmm. It's just it did feel like I made the comparison in my column probably a little more artfully than I might try to do now, but it felt a little bit like eating your vegetables, which like you do have to do to live, but it's not as fun as eating a sheet cake,
Right.
And we all need self-care. So, it felt more like dynamic and potential. It didn't let's put it this way. Did it feel like it could help and potentially be a building block? Sure. But did it feel like a game changer? Did it feel like, oh, this is the thing that could make a big difference on this side of the football? Not as much as the McMillan pick, So that's one reason why I think it appealed to me so much.
Yeah, I mean, and I hear you. Going back to the Bryce of it. Well, actually, let's tie both of these things that we've been talking about together. Bryce's power, the power dynamic, I guess, and also Dan Morgan's desire to get best for the team as opposed to need. I do wonder what sort of message this sends about, moving forward, be damned. Bryce is going to get what he wants because, like, I would have said pass catcher is a distant number 3 in needs coming into this draft. Yeah. And again, Dan Morgan proudly does not draft for need. I mean, look at last year's draft when we both thought they had to get a offensive lineman early, and they did not take one at all. In the draft.
And it ended up working out.
It ended up being okay.
Like, so that's So
I don't want to doubt the guy. I don't want to doubt the guy, but the secondary thing is such a like I don't understand what you're doing here, and I wouldn't be upset if maybe no one loses confidence in Bryce, right? But certainly there are some people that have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth, probably on the defensive side of the ball, not the offensive side of the ball, when you hear this is what the quarterback wanted, so this is what we did.
Yeah, maybe so. But at the same time, like, then do better. I don't know. No, I mean,
that's fair.
A lot of them are doing their best. I know. But it's more just like we were in panic mode at this point, and I did have to remind myself of that too. I saw it in the rundown, and I was like, yeah, I was in full panic mode at this point. Like, well, how are they going to fix it? And they figured out a way to fix it. But it was through a combination of guys already on the roster, and they added a few more, but it was like, okay, is that enough? And I don't know that even in free agency, there was enough. I mean, how many are on the roster currently? It's not many.
What are we talking about? Defensive backs?
Safety? Safety specifically.
Safety, I believe, if I remember right, they even with taking Ransom, I think they still have to get another one just to meet roster minimum requirements.
Literally. And so like that has me. That's the only spot for me that I'm kind of like, oh. Yeah. And look, they could have done some things differently at numerous spots. You could argue they signed a few pass rushers in free agency to bolster things up, and maybe they only go with one of those pass rushers and get instead of going with 2, but they did at least get a good value, I think, with the pick after McMillan and getting a guy that everyone thought would go in the first round, or at least like the latter part of the first round. So they got a value there in that. And essentially you get what ends up being a first round pass rusher plus then you get another one. So it's like, okay, you got double the pass rush, but then you leave the draft with one safety and he's a run stopper primarily. Yep. And I just have visions in my head of receivers running wide open.
Yeah, especially when you look later on in the draft and they get Cam Jackson, who like is a big old piece, but I never thought of him as a real difference maker at Florida. A and B, like you invested so much there in free agency that felt like a place you could have taken another.
Right. Well, I looked at the roster to sort it by weight.
Yeah.
For that part of my column because I do love the big beefy boys. I do. I love watching them play. I appreciate their art. I appreciate what those guys do. And I was like, wow, there are a lot of tackles on this route. There were like 2 ends on the roster. felt like 7, 8, 9 tackle. I don't remember. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, it was a little confusing in terms of, I guess like it is a nice like long-term depth piece, and clearly he's very good. But like, yeah, it was a little bit like, you know, especially when you put it that way. But I did get excited at the big beefy boy of it all. But still,